All right. So the last time we left off, we were discussing assistant coaching moves. We thought we were done with that, but apparently, uh, just some things do not want to settle easily. So as we are sitting now here on January 16th, uh, Berkley James and I are going to take you on with the news that's coming out of portal season, and it really started with the departure of Lonnie Teasley and the hire of Dion Barnes to be the next South Carolina defensive ends coach, outside linebackers coach. Uh, he comes from Penn State. He's got a very good reputation as a developer and someone who coaches guys who can get after it. So this is a good addition for South Carolina. James, let me get your assessment on this.
So, thanks for having me again. First of all, it's good to be
Always.
back. Now, I'm excited about this because one, there's always the aspect of a former player, a recent former player coming in and mentoring the young players,
Mhm.
getting them ready to go. And this guy was, obviously solid in college, great NFL career, the whole nine yards. But when you look at his resume, bringing in not just the experience and success he had at Penn State, but immediately your mind goes to one single player, Abdul Carter.
Mhm.
How amazing he was coached under Dion Barnes and the success he had and has already had in the NFL. Seeing that growth and that potential of what he could do here with players like a Dylan Stewart, it the mind goes to astronomical potential.
Yes, no question about that. And not only Dylan, but uh, a few of the pickups that Carolina has had in the portal here. We will discuss that soon. So obviously, we have just mentioned uh, the hiring of Dion Barnes, which means that someone had to go, and that was Lonnie Teasley, or not Lonnie Teasley, but Sterling Lucas. Did I say Teasley earlier?
Yes.
If I did, I apologize. It's Sterling Lucas who has departed Carolina. Did it under some uh would I be harsh in saying he departed under shady circumstances?
No, that seems like a fair word. I mean, you really hate to put those kind of negative connotations on either coaches or players or anyone who's contributed to the program like he did while he was here, but
Mhm.
the circumstances of which it ended were just it's hard to believe it went down like that, but
But
it
considering
is
the
what it is.
source, I don't know if it's that hard to believe.
Well, yeah, his ultimate let's say destination where he ended up, yeah, that's not too hard to believe, but it's unfortunate that someone that was so highly regarded in Colombia ended up falling into that trap, I guess, and becoming that. I don't know. I don't want to use any harsh words about it, but it's
Sure.
very disappointing.
Yeah, I would agree with you on that. It's disappointing the way it went down. Shane Beamer did not mince words in his press conference about the departure of Sterling Lucas. Uh, but, you know, as they all say, it's a business. He made a business decision. If he has a better opportunity at LSU, good on him. It's just his boss is somebody that tends to rub people the wrong way, if you will. But when all that was going down, that was right around the time the portal was opening. And that meant that there were some players who, I'm not going to say idolized Sterling Lucas, but thought very highly of him. And that gave some players uh, something to think about. And one of those, of course, is who we just mentioned. And that leads us into our next segment. We're talking about player retention. Let's start with, as it's been dubbed, the big three. Uh, and the biggest of those three is the aforementioned Dylan Stewart. When Lucas got the call, or when Lucas and LSU made it abundantly clear that he was going to LSU, this fan base, I think, held its collective breath for about 72 hours, maybe more. It felt like forever. I can't tell you how many times I clicked refresh on Gamecock Central, how many times I
Hmm.
refreshed my Twitter page. It was agonizing. And then all of a sudden, on, I want to say it was that Sunday or Monday, where the word started to come in that the expert panels of J.C. Sherbert, John Whittle, uh, Wes Mitchell, Chris Clark, the returns were coming back. Everyone started to feel better about Dylan Stewart. And then almost immediately, the announcement on his Instagram page, run it back, which means Dylan is coming back. So that was, in my estimation, probably the biggest retention of this entire portal cycle for Carolina. Your
I
thoughts
think
on
it
that?
was the yeah, it was definitely going to be the toughest, especially just to take it back to the Sterling Lucas situation. The circumstances of that, you think, okay, of course, just like LSU fans were saying, he's going to try and snipe and hamburglar Dylan Stewart away in the middle of the night. And of course, Carolina fans, you say they held their breath, but I mean, immediately as soon as Sterling Lucas was gone, I'm sure a lot of us Carolina fans just threw our hands up and thought, well, Stewart's probably gone too.
Oh, there were a
But
lot of people that at that point, and I'm one of those geeks that checks on the message board. Uh, there were a lot of people, as you said, threw their hands up. I'm going to take it further, through the white flag up, and had just declared Stewart was already an LSU Tiger.
yeah,
Uh, so, but and I think you and I are kind of more on the same page than maybe James Lee 843 and I are. Give all the credit in the world to Shane Beamer to one, get Dion Barnes, and then get to work to make sure that the retention of the most important players on this roster took place.
and it's not just the fact that he brought in another, dare I say, elite level defensive line coach, but it was how fast of a turnaround he had to bring in that fantastic hire. That was a perfect hire for what South Carolina is trying to do. And for him to go out, pick him out of the lineup so fast and make him an offer he couldn't refuse, bring him in was just, it worked wonders, not just for the fans to calm all of us down, get our blood pressure back where it should be, but I think that was a big piece of holding on to Dylan Stewart, of Beamer showing not only are we committed to you, but we're committed to the defensive line and the defense as a whole for South Carolina being elite next year. And we're not pumping the brakes. We're not waiting. We're doing it right now.
And it's not a rebuild either. It's not a, hey, we're going to have, you know, we took a step back in 25. We're going to need, 2 3 years to get back to where we want it to be. No, they are. And I think the coaching staff, especially the head man, knows this is a make it or break it year. Dylan Stewart coming back is definitely one of those guys that can help make it. Uh, and I think the Dion Barnes hire definitely helped. But retaining your top players, that will certainly help, especially with the right coaching staff in place. Uh, the last show we talked about just how vital it was to get the right staff in on the offensive side, but making sure you have the right staff on the defensive side in place still is vital, considering there are going to be losses to the portal, there are going to be losses to the NFL draft. This year is no different. You've got to make sure you retain that, and the way you do that is to make sure you have stability and continuity in place with most of your staff. Where you have strengths, the defensive staff has certainly been a strength over the last few years. Uh, Credit to Beamer and Clayton White for being able to get this one done. I think you're dead on. Elite defensive line coach, but also elite recruiter as well. So I think if things go as they are supposed to go this year, this is going to pay dividends not only in the short term, but the long term as well.
Yeah, agreed. And Dion Barnes being a younger coach as well, he's going to get those players fired up. He kind of reminds me of a defensive version of Sean Elliott with how
Okay.
fiery he can be, getting
Okay.
down there with the guys, showing them what it should be. He's going to be great. And I really want to say again the fast turnaround that Beamer had. You remember at the end of the regular season this past year,
Hmm.
he put the pressure on him immediately and said, oh, we're going for the playoff. We're going for all this. We're going to win next year. Next year is the year, et cetera, et cetera. He put a target on his back, and a lot of fans laughed. But then he pulls in Bryles, he pulls in Clements, he pulls in Drayton, and then that fast turnaround on Barnes is showing he is very serious. So Beamer knows the pressure's there, and he's got the right guys around him now to really make something happen, I think.
Agreed. And as far as more retention goes, Stewart was certainly the most important one on the defensive side of the ball. The other two, as everyone knows, are on the offensive side. Uh, Not to say that, you know, I'm not trying to say one thing or another. I just think Dylan Stewart of these three is the most important one to have back. I would honestly say the second most important one to have back and now we switch over to the offensive side of the retention of the big three is Nick Harbor. Um, you saw him take a giant step forward last year. Uh,
Yeah.
sure, some people are going to be critical of him, but he proved, I think, last year that he has the capability of being a number one wideout. He's got that elite level speed that is second to none. And uh, he started, I think, last year showing that he can catch. He can go up in traffic and catch. He can get physical. He can block. He can um, go and make tough catches where needed to. And of course, as we touched on just a second ago, that world-class speed that he's got, we saw it in the A&M game, saw it against Ole Miss, Virginia Tech, Alabama, the upstate school.
Mhm.
He runs the post pattern very well. There's no question about
Yeah.
that. And if you have an elite level wide receiver, it makes your quarterback's life a lot easier.
Yeah, and I think that's the biggest piece is now after 2025, I feel much more comfortable calling him a wide receiver
Yes.
as opposed to what I felt he was in 2024, which was an elite athlete playing wide receiver.
And I
Now
would
he's
go
turned
ahead.
himself into an actual full wide receiver. And if his hands continue to metaphorically grow, not physically, of course, but
Sure.
if his hands continue to get better and better as he has progressed over the past couple years, he's going to be a top receiver in the SEC for sure.
Yes. Agreed. Now, he's going to start facing a lot more coverages next year that he probably wasn't expected to get uh, the first 3 years of his Carolina career. Maybe he does. I don't know. I hope he does because he tore defensive backs up all season long last year. Uh, if not, and we'll get to some of the other guys that are being retained in the portal here, or from the portal, I should say. But we'll get to I guess you could say, uh, the one that completed the trifecta of the big three, and the first one that announced he was coming back, quarterback Lenoris Sellers. Obviously, last year he took a step back. I think there were a couple of reasons for that. Maybe it was the sophomore slump. I think Mike Shula had a lot to do with that. I think the offensive line had a lot to do with that. And it just
Hmm.
showed he had a bad year. He regressed. There's no question about it. For whatever reason, he regressed. Now with the addition of Kendall Briles, who I think has the perfect offense for Lenoris Sellers, I think you're
Yes.
going to see him take that step forward we were expecting him to take last season. I think you're going to see him not only take one, but maybe several steps forward going into 2026.
Right. And to touch on something you had mentioned before with Dylan Stewart potentially calling him the most important of the three, this is why I don't want to use the word most important because I think all of these guys are exceptionally important in their own ways. Because what Lenoris brings back is the culture and the leadership that Carolina fans need. We haven't seen that kind of culture shift at Carolina or that kind of leadership from the quarterback position, arguably since Connor Shaw. And I think a lot of fans
Maybe,
recognize
maybe,
that. Go ahead.
uh, I was gonna point out maybe Dylan Thompson.
Dylan's the only other one I was thinking that could possibly fit up there.
Sure,
But even still, I
but it's
felt he
around
was
the
always
same era.
in Connor's shadow. Yes, exactly. This is something that we haven't had at Carolina to this extent under Muschamp or Beamer up until Lenoris, which Rattler you had, yes, but he was a a 1 year transfer guy, so it's a little different. He wasn't
Yeah.
a Carolina born and bred kind of guy.
Would have liked to have
But I
seen what
think,
Jake Bentley could have done in a different system, but that's neither here nor
oh
there.
yeah, oh yeah, absolutely. But yeah, I think Lenoris's intangibles that he brings back are invaluable to what this Carolina team can be next year. Nick
Hmm.
Harbor, of course, opens up the offense more than you can imagine. Dylan Stewart, in a way, opens up the defense because he's always going to command double teams. But Lenoris being the guy who touches the ball every single play of every single possession, having him back does wonders for Carolina. And even if a lot of fans kind of soured on him because of this regression, I think of a lot of us breathed a sigh of relief because we didn't have to deal with the portal drama of quarterbacks
Exactly. And you
like
don't
we
have to
saw with
break in a
Sam
new
Levitt.
quarterback either.
Right. We don't have to worry about like the Sam Levitts, the Mensahs, the Carson Beck stories, all this kind of
Sure.
stuff. We have our guy. Everyone can relax, and now we have, as you mentioned, a perfect system that fits his skill set.
I agree.
And I think the future is bright. I love
Yeah,
it.
definitely. Definitely. Um, so looking around the rest of the roster, I think um, some departures certainly they definitely hurt. Uh, but I don't know how bad they hurt. Uh, Looking on the offensive side, probably the biggest loss there is Dre Jacobs. He's off to Miami. I don't know if I think from what I understand, that was an NIL deal. Uh, I think it may have also been the fact that Carolina was recruiting more receivers out of the portal this year than a year ago. Uh, to
Yeah, and I'm not as worried as Jacobs as most people are, only because I mean I loved what he did here. He was great. He was electric. I think he
Yeah,
wanted wide receiver one money, but he wasn't going to be wide receiver one.
no,
Uh,
I don't even know if he
uh,
would have been wide receiver two next year, to tell you the truth. And I'll touch
and
on that in a second.
yes, and that yeah, because of transfer portal guys coming in, but also that elite class of young wide
Yes,
receivers from was it the 2024 class,
yeah,
2025 class?
2025 actually, last
Yeah,
year.
yes,
One of
with
those
Clark,
though that
Gidron.
yeah, one of those that has from that class. Carolina has only lost one, and that was Brian Rowe. He is off to UCLA. Not entirely sure what the deal was there. You know, there was that incident at the Oklahoma game where he was actually suspended for a game and
Hmm.
faced disciplinary action. He had come on early in the season, and I don't know, just after that, he really kind of, I'm not going to say fell off, but he certainly got passed by. But
Yeah,
the guys that passed him
my
by, you got to be very happy about this to see coming back. First and foremost, I'm going to say it, Jaden Sellers. He showed a high level of speed last year that I think probably surprised the coaching staff. Another guy that I'm very high on and was very high on from the day he committed, Donovan Murph. Malik
yes.
Clark is going to be back. Didn't get to see much of him. Another guy that had kind of that sophomore slump, though, and one guy that I hope can get it turned around this year, Mazeo Bennett. So if you want to touch on those four that I just rattled off, feel free to go ahead and pick them one, pick all, pick a few.
So, yeah, some quick hitters then. Jaden Sellers, I think the biggest thing that jumped out towards the end of the year is he became one of the most reliable targets. He was
Yes,
always where he needed to be. He had his hands in place. Of course, that speed. I think that is kind of an intangible chemistry with, of course, his brother at quarterback. That only helps.
that's the
Malik
type of
Clark,
chemistry you can't get anywhere else.
exactly. Malik Clark, unfortunately, we didn't see a lot of last year, but I think he's got a high ceiling. Jordan Gidron and Donovan Murph, I think, are going to both be incredible. And that's why, again, that Jacobs transfer doesn't bother me as much
Yeah,
because, and even Brian Rowe, my headcanon for the Brian Rowe situation is he went into Beamer's office and said, "Hey, I want some more money." And Beamer said, "You got suspended this past year. I don't have the money to give you, so bye."
Yeah.
because we have a deep pool of wide receivers at Carolina that all have very high upsides. And I think the future is bright for those as well. I think it's going to be great next year. You're going to see the ball spread around to a bunch of different targets, as Kendall Briles likes to do. And you're going to see a lot of stars start to emerge.
Yeah. And you said it perfectly. Kendall Briles likes to spread the field out. And I mean, he puts his receivers way out there, which can only help because that puts them kind of on an island with cornerbacks. And these guys, I think, have the skill set to be able to do that. So, um, looking across the board still, I can't tell you. I would have to actually line this up and count them. Shoot, I'll do it. One, two, three, four, five, six, seven offensive linemen hit the portal. To me, the biggest loss out of that group is Tree Babalade. Uh, and even still, it's one you can probably absorb. Uh, though that being said, there were eight that actually entered the portal, but one withdrew, and one that had a very, I will say, subpar season last year, but one that people I think are very excited about to have back, Josiah Thompson. There
Yes.
is so much upside with him and a lot of potential that is yet to be unlocked. We'll see if Randy Clements can do that. Hopefully he can, because Lonnie Teasley certainly could not.
Yeah. For whatever reason, Teasley just couldn't get it out of him. I think Clements will. I think you're going to see Thompson slide over to right tackle because of incoming transfers we'll talk about later.
Mm-hmm.
Going into the portal, I had five offensive linemen in my mind that were of the let's try to keep mindset. Was Thompson, Babalade, Surratt, of course, Damola, who's another freshman who didn't really play, but he's got a lot of upside, and then Casey Henry, just because I felt like he was one of the more consistent. He wasn't amazing, but he wasn't a big failure either.
Yeah.
I don't want to harshly hit down on a lot of those players because respect all of them. They're all great in their own ways, but outside of those five, I thought you guys can go find somewhere else. But the ones that I absolutely said we had to keep were Josiah, Surratt, and Damola, and those are the ones that we were able to hold on to.
Mm-hmm.
Getting Josiah Thompson back is such a relief in my book because he's a local elite talent kid who was coached poorly. I think Clem can get him up to where he needs to be, slide him over to right tackle, take some pressure off of him, let him do what he does.
Yeah, even if they had not gotten Clem and had just left Sean Elliott there to do his thing, I think that would have been still an upgrade for anybody. But the fact that you bring in Randy Clements, a veteran guy who's been with Kendall Briles for a great number of years now, I think that can only help. I look at this offensive line haul that Carolina has brought in. Let's just list them off here. Uh, Carter Miller, UCF, Hank Purvis,
Mhm.
Purdue, Jacarius Peak, North Carolina State, uh, Kojo Poku, ECU, uh, Dane Arnett, Ferris State. They had somebody recently that did okay, I would say. Uh,
Yep, yep.
Seth Smith, Northern Arizona. I think the two that get people most excited out of that group is probably Jacarius Peak and Emmanuel Kojo Poku. Uh, I think those two are gigantic, literally and figuratively. Uh,
Yes.
it's going to be very interesting to see where these guys get plugged into. And, this goes back to the Josiah Thompson thing. One thing that, although guys like Josiah had a struggle last year, they still bring one thing by being here, and that's depth and experience depth. Well, not only do you have experience depth with some of these guys coming in, Peak in particular, these guys have been playing for 3 or 4 years now. They are bringing in that level of experience that you really needed to have last year that you didn't have. You think back to 2024, Kyle Kennard and Demetrius Knight had unbelievable amounts of experience, and that
Mhm.
added to their leadership and why they were so well respected, even though they only were here for just one season. I think this
Right.
could be kind of a similar situation.
Yeah, and that's actually one of the biggest philosophies that helped Indiana get to how great they are. They're
Hmm.
not just bringing in talent in the portal, they're bringing in veterans in the portal,
Yes.
guys who won't make those mental mistakes. And that's what I think Beamer's been able to pull off here. Of
Hmm.
course, the gem of the offensive line recruiting and probably the entire transfer class is Jacarius Peak. He's going to come
Agreed.
in day one, starting left tackle, and immediately be one of the top tackles in the SEC.
Yes.
Absolutely
No,
incredible pickup.
oh,
The
no
other one
question
I'm
about
really
that.
excited about, yeah, a lot of people are excited about Poku. I am too, but Carter Miller,
Yes.
I think the stat was over the last 2,000 something snaps, he's allowed maybe one sack at center.
And I think I had only
And
three penalties in that span too.
yes, and then flip to the other side of that coin with the problems Carolina had last year at which position?
Center.
Center.
Yep.
Center has been the least reliable position on Carolina's offense for I don't know how long. I think Simpkins was great there for a short while when he was here with Rattler, but
Yeah.
other than that, I feel like we've always had problems at center, and now having an anchor at center with talent around him, Peak, Poku at guard, Surratt probably going to get another start at guard, and a guy who doesn't forget how to block. Kids don't forget how to block, but Thompson on the right. I think this has the potential to be the best offensive line Carolina has seen since what, 2011.
I would probably go back to 2014 maybe. Because don't forget,
Okay,
as even though it was a 7-6 year, that was a record-setting offense. So
very true.
I would say probably since that group, um, you could possibly throw 2020 in there because they had 1,000-yard runner in Kevin Harris, and that was only in a 10-game limited season. Uh, Nevertheless, though, this offensive line right now looks to be a vastly improved one. And that's what you needed after last season. Again, we talked about this. This is not a long-term, you know, fix here. This is we are going to flip the script and we are going for the playoff next year. We might not get there, but we're going to be in contention. Shane
Mhm.
Beamer, of course, has said we're going to be in the playoff. I
Right,
will sign up for that all day long. I'm just not ready to stamp that just quite yet, although I'm not going to wave it off by any means at all here on January 16th.
right. Yeah, they Carolina will be competing for that spot. I think anything less than 9 wins, Beamer's probably gone. But then again, 9 wins with how chips may fall could get you into the wild card or one of those leftover spots for the playoff and 11 or
And
12 seeds. So,
and there's still time for possible expansion of the playoff, which personally I hope that does not happen because my fiance and I are getting married on December 12th. I specifically picked that day because that's the weekend between the SEC championship and the opening round of the playoffs. So hopefully uh, we make the playoff and hopefully it doesn't happen in an expanded year because I want to make sure I'm not missing college football uh, to get married. But uh, neither here nor there, just kind of throwing that up. Uh,
right, right.
so, one thing to point out here, we talked about the offensive line. One area that I would say has also been vastly improved uh, is the running back room. I thought Carolina was only going to go with two. And at the start, right there, it looked like it was going to be just to Sam Williams Dixon, transfer from Ohio State,
Mhm.
Jabri Wallace Coleman, Penn State. Both looked really good on their high school films, but then Carolina pulled a coup today, just this morning, and brought on Christian Walker, or not Christian Walker. I'm sorry. Trying. Yeah, trying to find his name. It looks like
Chris,
Gamecock Central is
Christian
not.
Clark.
It was Christian Clark.
Christian
Okay,
Clark.
thank you.
Yes.
Thank you. Yeah, running back transfer from Texas. This running back room was good. I'm going to boost it up to really good now, I would say.
Yep. I think you're going to see. Originally, I thought it was going to be Jabri Wallace Coleman coming in and being the 1B to Matt
Hmm.
Fuller's 1A.
Yeah.
But now I'm starting to think Christian Clark and Matt Fuller could be kind of 1A, 1AA kind of a situation with Wallace Coleman being a change of pace guy.
Yeah.
Um, and then, of course, you still got Jawarn Howell, I think, who could fit a nice role as a workhorse late in the game
Yeah.
to
Just the guy
take
that
pressure
just
off of the guys
destroys
on the left.
a worn out defense.
Exactly. And then,
Yeah.
of course, you still have Isaiah Agastave, who has some speed. He's a good playmaker when he gets the ball.
Mhm.
We'll see what he can do this year. But yes, that running back room went from very shallow to very deep very
Yes.
quickly.
And not only deep in terms of personnel, quality deep, I would say. So excited about that group. Uh, let's see. Today, though, Carolina also, or excuse me, yesterday, Carolina had a big pickup uh, on the edge position. Caleb Herring, edge rusher out of Tennessee, somebody that I think Carolina is going to have as a nice complement to Dylan Stewart, and also be somebody that could help bring Julian Walker along as the season progresses. So that can be a very nice piece. He was not the only edge that Carolina took. Carolina also took Drew Collins from Arkansas State. And with that, I think the writing was on the wall. And that's why you saw today it was announced that um, edge Desmond Yu, as he's best known as,
Hmm.
he has hit the portal. Now he has signed an extension with Carolina. Uh, however, I think you're going to see Carolina wherever he ends up committing to. I think Carolina is going to work a deal out where he will. Well, that school will compensate Carolina. Carolina will release him, and everything will be fine there.
Yep, that's kind of the story I've been hearing as well. I think that's what we're going to see. I, I liked having him there. He was a great backup edge that could come in, bring some energy. It was hard to block, but
Mm.
if he doesn't want to be here, I'd rather just take some cash and let him go.
And maybe he won't be. I don't think he was ever going to be a starter here. So if he wants to go and get more playing time, be a more featured guy, perfectly fine. I mean, he
Yep.
contributed, but end of the day, Carolina's got to improve everywhere, including in spots where everything is seemingly already all good. Real quick though, one addition that we haven't touched on yet that I know people are very excited about. Actually, we're going to talk about two more before we get out of here. Uh, on January 6th, Carolina picked up defensive lineman Jordan Thomas from Georgia.
Hmm.
That one, I think, will be huge as far as dividends go and paying off. Carolina, I think, is in good position here with another talented defensive lineman. Kind of reminds me a little bit of TJ Sanders when I watch him on film. Hard
Okay.
nosed, gets after the quarterback, shuts the running game down, and also just has a knack for being able to make plays. Something you saw TJ Sanders do as well. Don't think he'll have the patented TJ Sanders guitar slam, but nevertheless, I think Jordan Thomas is going to be a guy that'll be a day one impact guy.
Yep, I agree with Thomas. And then another quick fire one here. Not only Drew Collins coming in from Arkansas State, but his brother Kelby Collins.
Hmm.
He's another guy. And then Tamiwa Duriajayi, I think is how you pronounce it. We'll have to check that from Illinois. The
Yes,
two of them and Jordan Thomas, you know how Carolina likes to rotate out their interior defensive linemen a ton.
yes,
Those three with GBD and Tony Pike, those three, those five now are going to be rotating, and it's never going to slow down for that opposing offensive line. It's going to be
yes.
great.
Now, Carolina has lost both Brandon Cisse and Jalen Kilgore to the NFL draft. No surprise on either one of them. They both played at a high level. They're ready for the NFL. Carolina has gone out into the portal and brought home South Carolina native and Kentucky transfer Quaysheed Scott. That is a big pickup out of the portal. I think somebody that, again, can plug in on day one and be an impact guy, similar to what Cisse was this past year.
Yep, much like Steve say, not only in that, but also coming home to South Carolina. That's huge. I think he's going to be a starter, whether it's going to be on the outside opposite Judge Collier or as the nickelback, depending
Mm,
on how they want to play Bakari Swain and maybe save him for some special teams work. But either way, Scott's going to come in and have an impact right away.
yes. Uh, One other position before we touch on the rest of them. Upton Belafont, I think, is going to be a much more impactful guy than people realize. Yes, he's only a kicker, but keep in mind the last 2 years, that's been an adventure every time Carolina has gone out to try and get 3 points.
Yes, I don't hold my breath very often, but the past couple of years, every time we had a field goal attempt coming up, oh boy, I puckered up real quick. I'm going to feel a lot more relaxed with Belafont out there, much more comfortable. I think it's going to be nice to have a reliable traditional kicker out there.
Yes. Uh, all right. Out of the commits that Carolina has had, only one has not signed. That's actually the first commit that Carolina got, and that was Oklahoma wide receiver transfer Jaden Gibson. I think everybody's on the same page there. Everybody has just got to get paperwork done. I think that's what we're hearing. But going down the rest of the list, uh, offensive line. Yeah, we already touched on the offensive line. Trying to see if we missed anybody. Wide receiver Nitro Tuggle from Purdue. I think he's going to be another one of those plug-in guys. Uh,
Yep.
let's see. Long snapper Emmett Rhodes. Hey, if you have reliable long snappers, things can be good on special teams still. Uh, we've touched on the Collins brothers. That, I believe, well, actually, one more just came down the pipe. And this is, do they still say hot off the presses?
Hmm.
Does
Not
anyone?
anymore.
Yeah, no kidding. But that is actually, hold on, let me pull it up here. Quarterback position, and I believe Bowling Green transfer. Hold on, let me pull it up. Have you got it up by chance?
Um, I know it. I just don't have his name in front of me.
Okay, let me pull it up here. Thankfully, we have websites like Gamecock Central that can help us with that. So, Carolina reached into the portal today and pulled out. Uh, let's see. Hang on. Live radio, I guess, or live podcasting. Uh, Lucian Anderson III. So
There
good
you
to
go.
have depth, good to have experience depth. Can never have too much of that. Uh, just want to thank the recruiting sites, Gamecock Central, thebigspur.com, all the work those guys do to help us stay up to date, knowledgeable. Uh, James, another fun show.
Oh, as always.
Yep. We'll have to do it again sometime. But our time is up, and we look forward to the next one. My
Yes,
friend,
sir.
take it easy.
Yes, sir. You too.
All right.